Sex Appeal offers an endearingly awkward and hilarious take on finding yourself, falling in love, and navigating the tough time that is your first time. It's a cute coming-of-age film, and it's one that is well worth your time. The film follows Avery as she sets out to learn everything she can about having sex after her long-distance boyfriend tells her that he's ready to take things to the next level. When classmates and popular culture fail her, Avery decides to conduct her own experiments with her best friend, Larson. One refreshing aspect of Sex Appeal is that the lead character, Avery, isn't naive or shy about sex. There aren't any awkward scenes where she is shocked by how open people are about sexual intercourse and the body. Instead, she's the one ambushing her fellow classmates with direct sexual questions. Her scientific approach makes things awkward at times, but that's where the bulk of the humor comes from. Surprisingly, Avery's directness doesn't lead to any cringeworthy moments, and that's a major accomplishment. I absolutely loathe those moments, and there are usually multiple scenes in coming-of-age teen movies that give off so much secondhand embarrassment to the point where I have to fast forward because I cannot take it anymore. High school teenager named Avery who excels at things she's good at, meaning that she will avoid things she knows she won't fit in. Furthermore, she has a record-breaking GPA and got an early acceptance to Institute of Technology. However, she doesn't care about having a lot of friends, and she doesn't even want to attend the prom as she claims that STEAMCon or STEM competition is her prom this year. STEAMCon challenges Avery to design an app to solve a personal problem in her life. After school, Avery meets her best friend Larson, who has been her subject of experiments since childhood. Despite him not having passion in science, their partnership eventually has to come to an end after the teenager Larson attempts to kiss her but he gets punched instead. Despite having no appeal at all in a relationship, Avery turns out to have a long-distance boyfriend named Casper, whom he met in the STEAMCon. When being asked whether she brings him to the school prom, she answers that prom is not on her priority at all. Thus, Larson implicitly persuades her to go to prom with him, but the offer gets rejected. In her house, Avery brainstorms and suddenly realizes that there is nothing to improve in her life since she has no area of weakness at all. Not long after, she receives a video call from Casper, who wants to bring their relationship to the next level. When they meet at STEAMCon later, Avery panics and she immediately shuts down her laptop as sexual stuff is the only stuff she knows nothing about. Avery was raised by three moms who are Susie Deb, who is renowned for her legendary art, and bonus mom Kim. Because of that, she has no one to turn to for advice on adult stuff with men. She then goes to mom Susie and tells her about her boyfriend's intention, telling her that she is also thinking about doing it. Later, she gives her advice saying that sexual stuff should be messy, not to be perfect at every move. Avery returns to her room and concludes that she will create a smart application to help her become master at adult stuff, and she will also use it as a guide through her first hookup experience with her boyfriend. Later, she starts programming the AI and the algorithm, but she later realizes that she needs some experiments and finds additional data. The next day, she attends a sex class, but the teacher refuses to help her. She approaches mom Susie for the second time, who offers a copy of 50 Shades of Grey book and other similar books to her, but she rejects them. The mom then suggests she collects the data from her fellow friends at school, which she agrees to do. She begins interviewing several classmates, starting from cheerleader, dancer, bodybuilder, engineer, student. However, all of them don't have experience and don't have the urgency in doing so. Thus, they suggest Avery talks to school star Danica McCallum. After school, she approaches Danica, who gives Avery a lot of insights about adult stuff, including her size preference, and suggests she finds a partner to practice with. She agrees with that and immediately comes to Larson, asking him to hook out with her every day in her house, which makes everyone in the room confused. Larson escorts him out of the classroom and initially refuses the offer because Avery friend zoned him, and besides, she has a boyfriend. She keeps convincing and tempting him until he cannot resist and agrees to be her experiment partner again, despite him having a crush with another girl currently. A few moments later, the pair arrive at Larson's room, where he is told to follow a protocol that has been written in a paper before they start. Larson mentions that love is what makes a good lover, but Avery denies that hypothesis, saying that love and sexual stuff are different entities. Afterwards, she orders Larson to kiss her, which he does, and he plays music to make the atmosphere better. They cuddle while enjoying the song until Avery asks him to move his hand under her shirt. For the first time in her life, Avery feels an outstanding pleasure getting touched by a man, until Larson crosses the line and she decides to leave the room. At home, she continues building the algorithm for the application application. The next day, Avery visits a Potter and interviews more classmates to understand more about men's general system. After learning more about it, now she can't even get her sight out of it since it is everywhere in her daily life. She eventually comes back to Larson's place where she claims that she needs to touch his things to get her hands on experience. As expected, he allows her to do so and she starts examining it thoroughly. The scene suddenly moves to a place where Larson is acting like an astronaut who is ready to take off while Avery keeps pumping the fuel to the spacecraft. After a while, the spacecraft takes off and Larson screams in happiness. He then offers Avery to return the favor, but she gets it wrong and tells him she needs to get back to analyze the data. As today's experiment is successful, she realizes that there is still some gap in her data, so she visits Danica, who teaches the nerd girl how to touch herself, suggesting she pictures her object of desire. Following Danica's suggestion, Avery returns home and directly goes to the bathroom where she uses the water stream as a tool. While she is enjoying herself, suddenly the water becomes hotter and she has to apply a cold compress between her thighs. Soon Larson calls her, warning her not to think too much about something that happens naturally, but Avery changes the topic. She suggests that they have a dirty talk on the phone. Larson tries to bring up several topics to turn her on, but it seems like nothing works until he talks about periodic tables and stuff she would achieve after graduating from it. She enjoys the topic until Larson mentions about her winning SteamCon, and suddenly Carlson shows up while holding the trophy, which ruins the entire mood. It's 8 days remaining before SteamCon and Avery tries to interview several classmates. During the math class, one of the classmates, Frank, talks about erogenous zones in a very specific way until a woman sitting in the back, Marla, randomly offers to pleasure herself. To prove the discussion, the teacher eventually is distracted with them, but it seems like the students manage to disguise the adult topic into mathematics stuff, which makes the teacher very happy. Meanwhile, Marla keeps doing her stuff until she reaches the peak and screams in happiness. After class, Larson and Avery rush to the man's place to practice what she has discussed and discovered earlier in math class. The scene moves to Larson acting as a digger descends into a narrow, colorful tunnel. He starts exploring the tunnel while occasionally touching the wall. This action triggers Avery until he finds a door which teleports them into the swimming scene, and Avery enjoys that moment. Afterwards, she then comes up with a name for her application, Sex Appeal. Larson attempts to bring their night into the next level, but again Avery denies it, saying that their action needs to remain professional and focusing on the experiments, which disappoints him. He then hypothesizes that chemistry is achieved when love meets sexual stuff and vice versa, but she disagrees, stating that love has nothing to do with sexual experiences. Avery compiles all the data and finally finishes the application on time. One night before SteamCon, Larson approaches Avery and asks her to go to the Science Museum with him, but as expected, the girl declines the invitation. He questions her feelings towards him since they have been doing a lot of stuff together, but her answers disappoint him, so he decides to go there alone. Despite having 2 tickets with him the next day, Avery realizes that she feels something different towards Larson, but she denies the feelings. After Casper's presentation, they immediately head over to the hotel room and the pair starts doing stuff by following the suggestion from her application. However, Avery doesn't enjoy the moment as she did with Larson, even after following all the directions. Not long after, she decides to stop the intercourse and leave the room. At this moment, she realizes that she has fallen in love with Larson. The following morning, Avery withdraws her presentation because she knows that the application didn't work for her, so she walks out from the stage in tears. This leads to disqualification and Casper automatically becomes the winner of the competition. That night, she pays a visit to Larson, who is already fed up with her, stating that he has had enough with the false hope given to him and he is done waiting for the moment she changes her mind about him. He realizes that Avery never cares about anyone, especially him, so he is glad that he didn't have to sleep with her. She then looks back at the interviews she had conducted and finally believes that love and sexual experience are actually intertwined. The following day, Mom Kim comes to her room suggesting she speak from her heart and be honest to Larson. She interrupts Larson, who is practicing music, and admits that his hypothesis about love and sexual experience is correct. However, this action just makes her look silly and he has to escort him out. Avery finally reveals her true feelings to him, but it is already too late as Larson makes it clear that he has moved on from her. She offers him to go to prom with her, but he is not interested at all. In the end, Avery states that she loves him, but he walks away in silence. While crying in loneliness, she is approached by a teacher who teaches her a life lesson. Avery isn't necessarily blind to how Larson or anyone else feels about her. It's more like she just isn't hardwired to express love or care for another person in the way that most people do. Sex Appeal chooses to never fully explore Avery's difference in terms of labeling her, and in doing so, she never comes across as odd or other, which works to the film's benefit. She's merely presented as a young woman trying to navigate falling in love and having sex, which is extremely relatable, even if her methods may deviate from yours. Going into Sex Appeal, most of us probably saw how the film would play out. Avery and Larson would end up falling for each other during their experiments and end up together. But the film throws us a nice twist, and actually, the predictable ending wouldn't have worked anyway. There's nothing about Avery and Larson's situation that can be fixed with a dash of Hollywood magic. Avery is who she is, and there's nothing wrong with that, but Larson wants a bit more than she can give him. So, the film smartly opts to have Avery go through all the tried and true ways to win someone over and fail. Instead of getting the guy, Avery helps him get the girl and continues to work a bit more on herself. There's a part of me that hopes that in 10 years or so, when Avery has had a chance to learn more about herself and how she operates in terms of being a couple, that she and Larson might find their way back to each other. At the very least, I hope that they can salvage their friendship. What did you think of Sex Appeal? Share your thoughts in the comments below.